In the summer of 1966, a railroad company strapped two jet engines from a nuclear bomber onto a passenger train, and then they pointed it down a straight stretch of track in rural Ohio and hit 183 miles per hour. That record still stands today, and almost nobody knows this train existed. The 1960s were a death spiral for American passenger rail. Airlines were eating their lunch, highways were eating their dinner. Every major railroad in the country was hemorrhaging money on passengers. The future looked bleak. But one engineer at the New York Central Railroad refused to accept that. His name was Don Wetzel, and he had an idea so radical, so gloriously unhinged, that it just might have saved American rail. It didn't. But the ride was absolutely worth it. Not long before this story begins, the railroad was king. The 1940s and early 50s were the golden age of American passenger service. Then the jets arrived. Commercial aviation didn't just compete with the railroads, it embarrassed them. Between 1950 and 1965, intercity rail ridership dropped by nearly 50%. Entire services were quietly discontinued. The New York Central was fighting for its life. Management knew that to survive, rail had to get fast. Not marginally faster, dramatically, shockingly faster. In Europe and Japan, governments were pouring money into high-speed rail research. In America, there was one man doing it on a shoestring budget, in a maintenance shed in Ohio. Don Wetzel was a propulsion engineer. He understood something his colleagues didn't. The bottleneck on rail speed wasn't the track. It wasn't the wheels. It was the engine. Conventional diesel-electric locomotives were heavy, slow to accelerate, and topped out far below what the track could theoretically handle. But jet engines were a different beast entirely. The General Electric J47. This engine powered the B-36 Peacemaker, America's nuclear-capable strategic bomber. It produced over 5,000 pounds of thrust. Wetzel proposed mounting two of them, on top of a standard passenger rail car. The result looked like something that had fallen out of a science fiction novel. Workers at the yard started calling it the Black Beetle. The name stuck. The car itself was a modified Budd-built coach, the same workhorse body used across dozens of American railroads. But welded to its roof were two jet pods that turned it into something else entirely. Wetzel's team modified the nose to reduce drag, reinforced the undercarriage, and calibrated the thrust angle to push the car forward without lifting the wheels off the rail. On paper, the math worked. But paper doesn't shake at 180 miles per hour. The test site was chosen carefully, a dead straight stretch of New York Central Main Line between Butler, Indiana, and Stryker, Ohio. Flat, straight, and long enough to let a rocket train reach full speed. Everything was ready. The track was cleared. The engines were loaded. The only question left was whether the Black Beetle would fly or come apart trying. July 23, 1966. The corn was high, the air was still, and the New York Central was about to make history. A small crew assembled at Butler, Indiana. No crowds, no press conference, no fanfare. This was a working test, not a publicity stunt. At 6:45 in the morning, Don Wetzel's team fired the J47s. The Black Beetle began to roll, slowly at first, then faster, then much faster. Within the first mile, she was past 100 miles per hour. The track blurred. The corn rows turned to a solid wall of green. The jet exhaust left a shimmering trail, visible from half a mile away. At the midpoint of the run, a trackside radar clocked her at 183.85 miles per hour. That number didn't just set a record. It set a record that no conventional rail vehicle in North America has beaten since. For a few minutes on a Tuesday morning in Ohio, America had the fastest train in the Western world. Wetzel and his team had proven the concept beyond any doubt. Jet propulsion on rail wasn't a fantasy, it was physics. But here's where the story turns. Because the record was only half the test. At those speeds, the Black Beetle was generating forces the existing track infrastructure simply wasn't designed to handle. American rail lines in 1966 were built for freight and moderate-speed passenger service, not for jet-powered sprints at nearly 200 miles per hour. The cost to upgrade even a single corridor to safely handle speeds like that was staggering. And the New York Central was already drowning in debt. 2 years after the Black Beetle's record run, the New York Central merged with the Pennsylvania Railroad to form Penn Central. 2 years after that, Penn Central declared bankruptcy, the largest corporate failure in American history up to that point. Don Wetzel's jet train never ran again. The J47 engines were removed. The car was quietly converted back to conventional service. The Black Beetle was gone. And with it, a version of American rail history that never got to happen. Here's the part that will keep you up at night. Today, America's fastest passenger train, the Acela, tops out at around 150 miles per hour. In regular service, it averages barely 80. A jet-powered railcar from 1966 was faster. Don Wetzel's experiment wasn't a failure. It was a proof of concept that arrived 50 years too early for the political will to catch up with the engineering. When Congress created Amtrak in 1971, the focus was on keeping passenger service alive, not pushing its limits. Speed became a luxury America couldn't afford to chase. Meanwhile, other nations did chase it, and they caught it. China now has over 25,000 miles of high-speed rail. France's TGV has held land speed records of its own. Japan's Shinkansen runs like a clock. The Black Beetle ran for one day, set one record, and was forgotten for decades. But it proved something important. It proved that on American soil, with American engineering and almost no budget, the speed was there. It was always there. The M497. Black Beetle still holds the North American rail speed record, set not by a billion-dollar government program, but by one engineer with a borrowed bomber engine and a straightaway in Ohio. If this story surprised you, hit subscribe. These are the railroad stories they don't put in textbooks, and there are a lot more where this one came from.